Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, and Monday night, April 25th. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Prevention is Up to Us. It's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And, I'm glad to be able to do these shows. And last week and the week before, because it's April is the National Child Abuse Awareness Month and Prevention Month down in the United States, pretty much kind of nationally, and internationally. Everybody's kind of recognizing it. I decided to do some readings and whatnot from my book, so that's what I was doing last week in the evenings and the week before, some of the nights. So I'm glad to be back and just able to just to promote awareness and education regarding child abuse and the issues and child exploitation. I mean, just everything to do with child rights, right? It's absolutely horrific what's going on out here. And, I've been doing these shows since November 2009. I just appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I do a lot of shows, so I thank everybody who's taking the time to tune into my shows. I really appreciate it. And I know I just want to be one more voice, and I thought, well, I have to do my part. And, if all I can do right now is use my voice, well, then that's what I want to do. And I want to speak nationally and internationally if possible in the future. So I thought, well, this is a place to start. And so I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen because, when I started out doing Blog Talk Radio, I had no idea how long I'd be doing this and how many shows I'd be doing and how many people would be tuning in. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to be a part of my show and be on this journey with me, really. I was studying international community development a few years back at a college here in Calgary, and I couldn't afford to go anymore. So I had to drop my course, and sadly enough. And I was taking a break and then couldn't go back is what it was. I was taking a semester off and then couldn't afford to go back. So I was just had to drop the whole thing. But that's what my main, concern is children's rights, child rights, human rights. Because child abuse falls right in that, you know what I mean? Domestic violence and abuse, child exploitation of any type. This all falls under the umbrella of child rights, human rights, right? And this is very important for me, not just child rights, but all human rights. But I mainly focus on child rights because they have no voice, they have no protection, unless we're willing to stand up and protect their rights. And so it's very important to be a voice for children because they absolutely need our voices and they need all of us, right? And so I just appreciate everybody who's doing anything out here. And I just wanted to be one more voice. I saw all these great groups doing all this wonderful stuff, and so I've seen this all my life. And I was just thinking, wow, that's great. Look what they're doing. And it's wonderful to see all these great groups around the world helping children. And I just never thought that I could get involved. It just never occurred to me that there'd be anything I could do nationally or locally or anything else to get involved. And one day I basically just woke up and I thought, wow, I can get involved too. I don't have to sit on the couch, not like what I see, and knowing what's happening to children out here and to people out here, and not saying anything and not doing anything about it. I thought I can get involved, so we can all get involved in whatever way works for us. You know what I mean? Whatever way you can do it. Everybody get involved, and it does make a huge difference. So I want to talk tonight. I found this article, and this is really quite interesting. I haven't covered anything really from this website, I don't believe, and I've been on this website quite a few times. It's a great website. This is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that is www.missingkids.com. And there's lots of great information on here for people, and, it's very important to realize that there are, I don't know the stats, they're probably on this website, I'm sure, the statistics of how many children go missing, every minute of every hour of every day, year after year after year after year. And, if you're a parent who's had a child go missing, then you would know all about this. Or if you know someone whose child's gone missing, then you would know all about this. Me, myself, I've never experienced this. I've personally, in my own personal family and personal people that I've known in my life, I've never had this happen and never had anybody in my life, that I've known has this happened to them. But I know people now who I've met online and whatnot, through the work that we do with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children and whatnot. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And, we advocate, and we're busy. All of us are advocating, and there's a lot of advocates who support us, and we support them. And I've met a lot of people now who, are working to try to promote education and information regarding missing children, missing and exploited children. gained a little bit of knowledge from them. You know what I mean? And it's absolutely horrific. And I know Glendine Grant, and there's some more people. Actually, I don't know all their names. But there's so many people who are going through this right now. There's children who have been missing for a long time, and they're still trying to find them. But on the website, there's this article, and it's called "How to Keep Your Child Safer: A Message to Every Parent," and it's by Daniel D. Broughton, M.D., and Ernest E. Allen, J.D. And they talk about the authors. Daniel D. Broughton, M.D., is a pediatrician at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, past chairman and current member of the board of directors of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And Ernest E. Allen, J.D., is president and chief executive officer of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, in Alexandria, Virginia. It's just a little article, but it's important that people know, that parents know especially, how to keep your children safe, and that there are a lot of people out there who are looking to get a hold of children, and they don't look like these scary bad people that society has always portrayed. These types of people who would be out here looking for children who are vulnerable, looking for any opportunity to get a hold of a child and abduct the child, and sexually use the child or whatever they're going to do to the child. They don't look like these scary people that a lot of people think. Like somebody who would be doing these things would look like somebody who has wearing a trench coat, wearing a hat, hiding around in the dark corners and dark shadows of alleys and things. Parents are always telling their kids, don't go down the alley. I mean, you can't even go down the street. You're probably safer going down the alley. I mean, honestly, like the chances of running into one of these types of perpetrators who are out here, exploiting children and getting a hold of children, these child sexual predators and whatnot, they're on the street looking like everybody else, right? And so this article really brings attention to that, and I think it's very important for parents to realize this. This is something that every parent should know. And they said, for instance, although studies and statistics noted in this article have not yet been updated, the child safety messages are as true today as they were then. And they said, don't take candy from strangers, quote unquote, as we can all remember our parents, guardians, and teachers passing on these words of wisdom with the hope and expectation we would stay safe and avoid individuals who could cause us harm. Wouldn't it be wonderful if life were as simple as that? Unfortunately, we now know children are at a substantial risk, and most of the individuals who perpetrate these crimes are not strangers in the eye and the mind of the child. It says, are traditional child safety messages effective, accurate, and complete? It says, do they warn children about real threats to their safety? Do they unduly frighten children and families? It said, are parents and guardians giving their children information that makes them more vulnerable to victimization, not less? They said the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has reviewed existing research and assessed its own database of long-term non-family abduction cases to test long-standing child protection messages, as well as provide a foundation on which to build positive, non-fear-inducing, effective messages and safety tips for the future. So they talk about stranger danger here. They said Dr. David Warden, psychologist at the University of Strathclyde in the UK, has evaluated the efficacy of child safety programs, and he emphasizes the responsibility to identify a potential assailant cannot be left to the child alone. And he said in an article in 1990 Times, no matter how intelligent the child, he or she does not see the world through skeptical adult eyes. Dr. Warden adds, children live very much in the present, quote unquote. They can't foresee someone's actions or judge their intentions, certainly not at primary school age, and they have a very weak understanding of motives. They simply take someone at face value. The concept of stranger danger is difficult because it clashes with the social constraints on children to be polite to adults. And research suggests that children don't really know what a stranger is. They feel that once someone tells his name, he ceases to be a stranger. Dr. Ray Wire, noted authority on the treatment of sex offenders, stated in the 1991 Sunday Times article, the first step in advising never talk to strangers is to make sure that the child understands what a stranger is. Children might believe it means a person who looks odd rather than someone they do not know. And they said Dr. Wire further observed a child's image of a stranger is different from an adult's, and the person trying to ensnare them could seem caring and persuasive and not at all threatening. After 10 seconds chat, they are no longer a stranger to a child. And that's people see child sexual predators and these people that they're out here looking for children to get a hold of children. They know all this stuff, and they know how to get a hold of a child and how to be friendly and how to befriend the child, how to make the child feel comfortable. You know what I mean? They want to get a hold of that child, and they want to make they don't want to make a scene doing it. And so they know, they know it's absolutely horrific, but it's just the way it is, and children are vulnerable, and living in fear just doesn't do anybody any good, and it's certainly not healthy for the child. But getting the information and getting the education, that's the thing. And I wish that my parents would have told me about this, and like warned me about this stuff. Honestly, I mean, it's important. You know what I mean? Because children don't necessarily aren't getting this stuff anywhere else. They're not necessarily going to get it. Maybe nowadays they have a little bit more attention to it in schools, and from teachers and whatnot who try to present some of this stuff in the classroom, or these little side courses that they might present to the class, right? But it's just really important for parents. Parents really need to be aware of this stuff, and you can help protect your children, or try to anyway. And they said that in 1987, an HBO television special, How to Raise a Street Smart Child, host Daniel J. Travanti asked, "Does your child know what a stranger is?" The fact is, most children just do not know. They think a stranger is someone threatening and evil. The problem with telling your children don't talk to strangers is that the bad guys don't always look bad. In the same HBO special, children provided their definitions of a stranger, and so they gave some examples of what the children had said. They said a stranger sometimes wears a hat, sometimes a black or brown jacket, and is a guy with a beard, some hair and a mustache and some glasses. This is what children think a stranger is. Stranger danger. Some children said, I have lots of versions: aliens, regular strangers, robbers. Another child said, I think a stranger is like a punk rocker who drinks beer all day and sits around in a vacant lot. And the one said, a stranger looks mean and ugly. Another one says mean and hairy. And another one says bigger than you, bigger than most people. So this is their idea, children's idea, some of these children's ideas of stranger danger, strangers, right? It is clear the concept stranger is difficult for children to grasp. A neighbor, a familiar face in a child's daily routine, someone the child's parents or guardians know well enough to speak to, or whose name the child knows, is probably not viewed as a stranger by the child. And they said the myth of the stranger, they said research on victim-offender relationships in child abduction molestation cases is not new. And they said in 1978, a study of the child molester myths and realities, co-authored by A. Nicholas Groth, Ann W. Burgess, H. Gene Burnham, and Thomas S. Gary, was published in the Journal of American Criminal Justice Association, based on a sample of 148 offenders who sexually assaulted underage persons and were sent for observation to a Massachusetts treatment facility. The research of Groth et al. Noted that only 29% of the offenders studied were complete strangers to their child victims, and in 71% of the cases, the offender and victims knew each other at least casually, and in 14% of the cases, the offender was a member of the child's immediate family. Interestingly, this research has also examined several other traditional views or myths. Among them were dirty old man myths. They said 71% of the subjects were younger than 35 years of age. And intellectual disabilities myth, 80% of offenders fell within the normal intelligence range. And they said that in 1985, research was undertaken by Dr. Jean Abel of Emory University with a group of sex offenders funded by the National Institute of Mental Health. The research concluded the typical sexual offender against children is male, begins molesting by age 15, engages in a variety of deviant behavior, and molests an average of 117 youngsters, most of whom do not report the abuse. This is what they found. The research found those who attack young boys molest an average of 281. With the promise of confidentiality, offenders admit an average of 75 sex crimes each. By the time he reaches adulthood, the average pedophile has attempted more than 25 child molestations. And actually, they should say he or she, because women do sexually abuse children as well. And sadly enough, there are lots of women out there who do sexually abuse children, and there are women sexual predators as well. And a lot of them are teachers, believe it or not. Just start looking around at what's out there, public information on the web. That doesn't mean all teachers. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that all parents abuse their children either. It's just this sad fact that a lot of the cases that have come out have been, most of the women that have been caught have either been mothers abusing their own children sexually, or sometimes their friends, their children's friends, or it's a teacher, right? It's very, very sad, but it's very, very true. And daycare workers, people like this who have access to children, right? It's not just men, so I just want everybody to know that. So they said that by the time that this person, they're saying he because maybe they studied just males, right? But I don't know. By the time he reaches adulthood, the average pedophile has attempted more than 25 child molestations. Of rapists, 26% began as pedophiles, 9% as voyeurs. It said in 1985, Dr. Abel emphasized these offenders seek legitimate access to children. He wrote, "Everyone is so surprised that a priest is a child molester or that a school teacher is a child molester. I'm flabbergasted that anyone would be surprised. Child molesters seek out jobs to access kids. That's why they become pediatricians, child psychiatrists, and work in boys' camps. This is just the issue. It's wherever the child is." And so, that's why there's an issue with situations in schools with teachers, coaches, janitors, people in the school system, lots of people who child sexual predators and pedophiles and whatnot, will try to work in these places, anywhere where they can get a hold of a child, because they want easy access, and they want to be able to access a lot of children, you know what I mean, or pick on a few and abuse them for a long time. So they like to work around children. Right, and so many times people will also try to befriend families, child sexual predators and pedophiles. They'll be like, "Oh, I'll babysit your children." No problem. They'll become really good friends with the family if they're like neighbors on the street. You really have to be careful when somebody says, "Oh, I'll watch your children." I mean, do you really know who these people are? That's just the issue. We really don't. And so you have to be very careful because unless you want your child to end up a victim of a child sexual predator, I mean, well, that's all right. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused under the age of 18. This is the facts. This is the stats. The reason they know is because that's what the case is right now. 1 in 3 to 4 girls, 1 in 6 to 7 boys, depending on what federally funded stats are out there. This is all public information, on most of it coming from the Child Welfare Information Gateway and other places, and it's just what they know, and it's just from the stats that they have. But I would say 1 is too many. So if it's not 1 in 3, 4 girls, 1 in 6 to 7 boys, I don't care. 1 is too many, right? I'm a victim of child sexual abuse perpetrated by a sibling, and if you know me, then you know 1, and that's too many. Now, I personally know all kinds of people who were sexually abused as children, so that's really sad, but it's very, very true. There are a lot of people out here who actually will never, ever come forward because they will not ever want to disclose the abuse for many reasons. And so, they don't even know how high the numbers are. That's how many sick people are there who are out there abusing children sexually. There's a lot. Many of them, and actually most of them, are family members. If you do the research and you check it out, they said that 90 to 95% of child sexual abuse happens within the home. It's only about 5 to 10% stranger danger, right, what they're talking about here right now. You have to really watch out for the people in your own family. That's who will abuse children, most likely. 90 to 95% of child sexual abuse happens within the home. Nobody wants to believe that, but it's true. And they said that 60% of that would be somebody that the child knows, a direct relative, cousin, grandma, grandpa, somebody who a relative of the family. The other 30% or 3+% would be the parents, right? Very, very sad, very, very twisted. And the information's out there. You just got to start looking around. What I find is sad that's behind every one of these stats is a child who's been abused. And, it's very, very sad. It just shouldn't be happening, but there's just so many sick people in the world. And it's like, what do you do with them all? There's so many, they can't even keep track of them all. I mean, and half of them don't even end up on the sex offender registry list. And if they do, they move and they don't check in when they should. And they go and they reoffend, and then they get thrown in prison again. I mean, it's just absolutely horrific, right? And who's paying the price for this? These kids are, But they said fear. They said tragic and highly publicized child victimization cases have heightened the awareness of families regarding child safety and simultaneously increased fear. They said in the past, research has demonstrated high concern and disproportionate fear among children, parents, and guardians. And they said that in 1987, a Roper poll reported the Washington Post 76% of children feared being kidnapped, and this was their number one concern. In a 1988 Washington Post article, it was reported Peter Hart found the second greatest perceived risk of parents regarding their children was being kidnapped, 37%. In a 1997 survey conducted by Princeton Survey Research Association poll, it reported in Newsweek the top worry of parents was the fear their child might be kidnapped or become the victim of violent crime. In the same survey, parents fear that their child might become a victim of sexual abuse, ranked fourth, just behind serious accident or illness. And I mean, I can tell you, I was almost kidnapped 5 times. So 5 times in my lifetime. So did my parents care? No. That's obviously why I was out on the street running around getting kidnapped nearly at 5 times. The issue is that it's happening. I've even almost been kidnapped as an adult as well, because I am quite often doing things on my own, and you know what I mean? It's not that I'm a loner, it's just that I'm very much independent. And so you have to really watch yourself. There's the people, see, that they don't want to strike fear into the hearts of people, but I'm telling you that there are a lot of sick individuals out there, and I've run into quite a few of them. So it's just funny that somebody like myself, who really is just an average person, would have had 5 attempted kidnappings as a child, and I've been saved every time, thank God. And also, as an adult, to have 2 more situations come along where it could have gone extremely bad had I not been smart, right? But I was already smart because I had these 5 attempted kidnappings as a child, so I was actually very much aware what was going on. It's not good to live in fear. It is good to be alert. It's very good to know what your plan is, and and children need to know that they have to have a plan. You know what I mean? So if there's no good, it really doesn't do a family any good to live in a rose-colored glass house where everything is just lovely and ducky and peachy, because the world is not like that, and that's not reality. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that you have to be so paranoid that you lurking around, looking around, afraid to make a move just in case. That's not living either, right? But you do have to get the education. You have to know how to protect yourself. If I had children, I would want them to know how to protect themselves. And I would want them to know that there is such a thing as horrible things going on out in the world. Even though it's not fun, they're going to have to wake up to the reality of it eventually. And there's no sense in letting them go along not protecting themselves and not knowing that they need to yell and they need to make as much noise as possible. They need to get help if somebody tries to bother them or tries to walk off with them or whatever. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, children just don't know these things because their parents don't tell them. My parents didn't tell me. Strangers were walking off the street with me. Luckily, a neighbor actually saw this, right? So I was saved by a neighbor. Another time, I was just smart enough to run, got away that way. You know what I mean? I got away. Another time, a lady saved me. So I was another time a guy saved me. Actually, this was in Vegas. So in many different places, 5 different times I was almost kidnapped. So it does tell you, that's probably a bit extreme. Not everybody's had 5 attempted kidnappings in their lifetime. But the thing is that it can happen just once, and you don't want that to happen to you. I've actually talked to other people that I know that have had attempted kidnappings when they were young, and they actually managed to get away. And I know lots of people. So it's just time to wake up to the reality. If you're a parent, if nobody likes dealing with this stuff. We don't like having to deal with this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to have to deal with this, right? But so many parents just choose to just ignore it and don't, get the information and learn how to protect their children. And then their children end up victims of child sexual predators and pedophiles. And then they're crying the blues. Well, I would be too. But the issue is who's really paying the price for that? The child. Right? So, it's not good. And this is, sadly enough, a very sick world. The FBI.gov has a great website. I love that website, the FBI.gov, and I like to go on there and check it out because they have great information about what they're doing to stop child sexual predators and pedophiles, and especially online people who are getting a hold of children, trying to attempt to get a hold of children online to sexually exploit them and other things, and to hopefully eventually meet these children, right? They are working 24/7, ICAC and the FBI. And the FBI.gov has a great website with lots of information on there for parents on how the same thing that these guys have, the same types of information on how to keep your children safe from online predators and from child sexual predators. But it's great to see some of the stories that they got there of how many people they busted and how many people they feel are actually online at any given time searching for vulnerable children who they can get a hold of. And you'd be real surprised. It's shocking. It is absolutely shocking how many people are doing this stuff. How many people are just trying to get a hold of a child, whether it's online or out on the street. And the headlines that roll in, children being assaulted in grocery stores and in department stores because their parents or their grandma turned their back on the kid for 2 minutes, and then these people are raping these children right in the middle of the floor. This is a real case. This actually happened last summer. And, so see, there's no such thing as a decent world for our children, right? It's a pretend place. It doesn't exist. This is absolutely a scary world, and it's probably a little bit more scary for me because I grew up abused and was on the streets and almost kidnapped. And I've just had a lot of, I've experienced some of the dark side of this world. But the thing is that I know the realities. I know what's actually happening out here, and so that's, I like to be a bit of a voice of warning for people that it's not a good place. And it can be. You can create a wonderful world for your children, but the outside people are always going to, your children are going to have contact with teachers, with all kinds of people. And if you don't know how to protect your children, you got to be really careful, because there's all kinds of people out there, teachers, doctors, lawyers, right? There's all kinds of people, neighbors, right? People out trying to get a hold of children to sexually use them. So keep that in mind. You know what I mean? Just because people look friendly and they want to babysit your children, or they just want to take your kids on a camping trip or something. I mean, just because they look friendly doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Because those child sexual predators, they know how to be friendly because they want to get a hold of your child. So it's scary. You better believe it's scary. But it's really no good to live in fear, right? Because fear doesn't get you anywhere. But education and keeping your head on straight when something like this is actually happening can save your life. If you have a plan, you can save your life in a situation like this. Annie Jacoby has a great website, and Annie Jacoby's a personal safety expert, and I just have met her through online stuff and from what we do, because we're all advocates, right? And she's got a great website, and I'm going to try to pull this up for you right now. She has some great information there. And it's just awesome. It's just so good regarding how to keep yourself safe as an adult and as a child. And just tons and tons of great information. So I'm going to see if I can pull her website real quickly. But yeah, it's just important that, you just can't pretend that this stuff just doesn't happen. I know lots of people would like to, but it's just not reality. And it's just sad that this world is the way it is, right? But this is the way it is. So that's why I like the FBI's website, FBI.gov, because they really give the facts, the straight numbers of just how many people are out there and who are, looking